showing his ID. I am the light of the world. It's the first in a series of metaphorical statements which establish his identity. The complete verse is this: and Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. It was an outrageous statement for Jesus to make. After all, those titles were the exclusive property of the emperor: Son of God, God of God, Lord, Light of the world, Savior of the world. Those titles all belonged to Caesar. So there was hardly any surprise that when Jesus said this, it caused a huge debate. For if Jesus is light of the world, then of course Caesar is not, and vice versa. And so the verses which follow in chapter 8 are consequently filled with debate and arguments and confrontations and cruel put-downs, which show up in the blogs and the tweets between Jesus and the disciples and the reigning political and religious authorities of the day. And when that scrum runs its course, the story of how Jesus is the light of the world picks up again in chapter 9. Jesus acts in compassion to heal a man who's been blind from the day he was born. A man who has merited little attention from the well-positioned authorities that are all around him until he begins to see. And then he becomes the center of a debate. But you can listen in for yourself. These are the first verses of chapter 9. As he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered that neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him, and we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. And as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. And when he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes and said to him, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. And then he went and washed and came back able to see. And the neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask him, is this not the man who used to sit and beg? And some were saying, it's he. And others were saying, no, it's someone like him. But they kept asking him, and then, how were your eyes opened? And he answered, the man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. And then I went and washed and received my sight. And they said to him, Where is he? He said, I don't know. So Jesus directed this man to wash up in the pool called the Pool of Siloam, and it was no coincidence that the Pool of Siloam was the source of water used in the temple rituals called the Festival of Booths. And that festival, featuring rituals that involved both water and light, becomes symbolic of the character of Jesus, living water and light for the world. And I find it interesting that Lent begins on the heels of Transfiguration Sunday. 3 disciples of Jesus were caught up in that dramatic event on a mountaintop, and during his prayer time, a stunning miracle happened to Jesus. This is not a miracle that Jesus did, but one which he received, which put Jesus in a new light for the disciples. And there appeared to be a little chat going on between the prophet Elijah and the spiritual guide Moses. Blinded by the brilliance of this event and not knowing how better to respond, the disciples offered to do something that they knew how to do. They proposed to build 3 booths. One for Elijah, one for Moses, one for Jesus. And it would be a way to mark the spot, a turning point in how they understood who this Jesus is. In Jewish lore, these booths were hutches and kind of shelters in which devout Jews lived during the 7-day Festival of Lights. And so here we are gathering up these themes involving a festival, a transfiguration, a stunning claim by Jesus to take over the titles worn by Rome, and the curing of a man's blindness. And all of it is about light. What do we know about light? Nothing's faster than light. It easily outruns sound. Light from the sun gets to Earth in 8.5 minutes. If you were to travel at the speed of light for 1 full year without stopping to ask directions or to make a rest stop, you would travel 5,874 billion miles. Without light, there's no vision. Without light, there's no color. There's no such thing as moonlight. The moon has no light of its own. It's the sun that lights up the moon. And the flame of a flickering, feeble-looking candle can make darkness shrink. The festival, however, featured huge, towering candelabras so tall one needed a ladder to get up to the place where one lights them. Imagine runners ascending the staircases to light an Olympic torch. These lights were so grand, it is said that they not only lit up the temple, but the whole city of Jerusalem. That's fine, of course. And then Jesus said, I am the light of the world. In the beginning, when the earth was a formless void, darkness covered the face of the deep. A wind from God, God's Spirit, swept over the face of the water, and the first thing God said was, let there be light. In the beginning was the Word. What came into being was life, and life was the light of all people. Good Friday. Good Friday is about death, about light going out of the world, but Easter is about life, light returning to the world. And Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And that's the first of several I am sayings, which we're going to explore in this Lenten midweek series. But remember, he also said, you are the light of the world. What do we know about light? It reveals, it encourages, it's the only element that makes it possible to see. And Jesus said it's no good to put that light under a bushel where it doesn't help anyone see. So let your light shine that the goodness of God might be seen. Light overrules blindness. It can repair your retina when it's known as light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Well, that's a lot harder to say than the simple acronym, which is LASER. LASER is the acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Or light can scan your barcode, play your DVD, treat acne, weld, guide, point, heal, cut, incapacitate, shoot down ballistic missiles, project words to sing on a screen. And the same light which can repair sight can destroy sight if we carelessly deploy it. The way we deploy light provokes moral debate. The disciples wondered, Rabbi, that man who was born without light in his eyes, who did the sinning? Him? His parents? And Jesus said, that's a wrong question. We aren't playing blame games here. It isn't about blame, it's about overcoming darkness. It's about acknowledging that there's so much about us which can't stand the light of day. And so Lent is that season to expose ourselves to the brightness of Christ's claim on us, a time to give up dark ways and take on Jesus' ways. At Emmanuel on Transfiguration Sunday, we put it this way. We said our calling is not to keep looking for light at the end of the tunnel. Our calling is to bring light into the time. Well, how does that work? Well, perhaps it's a simple cup of hot soup taken to the homeless person shivering in an old refrigerator box under the overpass, offered without judgment or criticism. Because when Jesus said, whenever you do this, you're treating me the same way, but he didn't give us permission to decide who deserves to be loved and who doesn't. Or maybe there's light in that offering of letters sponsored by Bread for the World, which encourage us to write to advocate for renewal of a farm bill or continuation of at least the same level of support for SNAP, because so many of God's children can't pay enough of their bills to also feed their families without any help. Light is generated by random acts of kindness and senseless deeds of love that become the norm rather than a surprise. When loneliness is broken up with friendliness, when despair is relieved by sustainable hope, when initiative is made to repair fractured relationships, when good service for the sake of others is far more important to us than fretting about how poorly we've been served, when policy, practice, and perspective concentrate on the common good instead of personal interests. Jesus is the light of the world. And you are light in the world. Ronnie Spector sang it like this in his song titled Light One Candle. He says, in a world full of darkness, in a world full of pain, all it takes is a sparkle, all it takes is a flame to make joy out of sadness, to bring hope to a life like the promise of the dawn on a long winter's night. It takes one little candle to turn darkness to light like the promise of the dawn on a long winter's night. Make the sun rise tomorrow with your faith in today. You can soften a sorrow if you just light the way. All it takes is a candle to turn darkness to light like the promise of the dawn on a long winter's night. And so here we are. We are the candles who get their light from the light of the world. We are Jesus followers. We are inheritors of that Jesus light, trusted to be mirrors for Jesus who seeks to break up the darkness. So let us not forget the promise of the gospel, that the light is not overcome by darkness. That's Jesus' ID, light of the world. What about us, followers of the light? We are to be the light in the world. There's a lively song in the hymnal with this line in it. You people come and follow me. You'll learn what you were meant to do and be. And the rest of the lyric offers examples of how we can light up the world in Christ-like ways. And so turn to hymn number 469 or watch the screen. Let us vigorously sing this song, I am the light of the world. You people come to me.